Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am.
Should we start? Day by day, the strength is becoming less.
Yes, ma'am, we can start.
We can start. How many are attending other classes?
Ma'am, last class around 41 were there, but now only 26 are there. I don't know.
Generally, how many are attending?
Generally more than 30, but less than 35, something like that.
In all classes?
Yes, ma'am. Less than 40 always.
What is the reason?
No idea, ma'am. Like most of them say that they don't have connection and connection problem, and yeah.
How come? They are from Belgaum or outsiders?
I'm outside.
Outsiders. Okay. Should we start then?
Yes, ma'am, we can start.
All right. So last class, we had learned some important terminologies, some important terms we come across when we are learning about cloud computing environment. Okay. One such a term, one such definition that we had learned was what is meant by a cloud provider. Provider means the company which gives you the cloud services. Then cloud consumers means clients, users who make use of cloud computing services. We had learned what is pipe size. Pipe size means bandwidth. Since internet is required to access the cloud services, if the bandwidth is better, you can access them in a fast manner, in a speeded up manner. So pipe size there refers to the bandwidth or the speed at which you can access internet and in turn services. I had also told you about what is meant by upstream and what is meant by downstream. Upstream is uploading. It means sending your data from your machine to the cloud server. And downstream means downloading, bringing the data or the stored information from the cloud vendor or from the cloud server onto the client. All right. I had also told you this definition of redundancy. In a cloud-based environment, since all your data is going to be stored in a centralized location, possibility that the server can fail or crash is always there. So what the cloud providers do is they create mirror images of the information or the data that is stored on the server and access them whenever such, it works like a backup. So whenever such crash is going to happen, replicated data that is stored on different machines, through them, the data is obtained back. Through them, the data is backed up and made it available to the client machines. So there can be n number of servers where the data is replicated. and alternative paths are there in the cloud over which data can be accessed. This is referred to as redundancy. Redundancy means repetition. Repetition of what? Repetition of data. Replicated data is stored in a replicated manner on the server so that it can be accessed. Even if one or two of the servers fail, it can be accessed over a alternative path. Now, today what we are going to learn is about cloud services, or the term service. What all does it contain? Or this term service generally refers to, is a very broad term, and it refers to a number of things that are incorporated or that are made a part of the cloud environment. Now, whenever you are using the cloud environment, and suppose you have a machine, a client machine, through which you are accessing cloud applications, then there are certain services which are incorporated or which are implemented as a part of the cloud or as a part of the cloud application, and they are made available to you. Now, these services that I'm going to discuss, you might find them no big deal. We are already using these services, or in general also these services are there. True. But these services, say 20 years back when this particular book was published, was new thing. This was not there in the standalone applications. This was not there as a major network-based applications. All these things were newly introduced somewhere in 2004 and 2005 when cloud applications were becoming popular. At that time, these services were there, or these services were incorporated, were put as a part of the cloud application. So as such, you can look at them as services which were given during the introductory phase of cloud-based applications. Now, what is the first service? Most cloud applications will have an identity service. Now, what do you mean by identity service? Since client machines are geographically situated away from the server, and there can be n number of clients or n number of users, and each user may have different rights over the network, the kind of data that they can access can also be different. Hence, privacy of data is important. Also, checking and authenticating whether the user is a credible user or not, that is also important. For that, the identity service was implemented in cloud applications. Now, here in identity service, the cloud provider will check the credential of the user. Credential means he checks whether he is an authentic user. Now, what's the general way of checking the authenticity of a user? By asking the user to enter a username or a password or maybe a PIN number and such procedures which will authenticate the user, and only after that the cloud services are made available to him. Now, credentials, that is username and password generally, or a PIN number whatsoever, can be of two types. In cloud-based environment, the credentials of the users can be proprietary credentials, or they can be open IDs. Proprietary IDs or proprietary identity is like a identity of the user given by the cloud provider. That is, you create a separate account in order to identify yourself on the network or on the cloud. For example, Google may ask you to have your own Gmail account or maybe a Google account. That Google account you can use for all the Google apps. Okay. So if you have a Google account, you can use it for Gmail, you can use it for Google Drive, you can use it for other apps that Google provides you. Now that becomes a proprietary identity, or it becomes a proprietary username and a password that will authenticate the user or will identify the user as a credible user. Okay. Similarly, Microsoft can have its own username and password for all the Windows-based services. But apart from proprietary username and password or user credentials, there can be open IDs. Now, what are open IDs? These are not given by a central authority, and they are generally in the form of a URL. Okay. And there, you don't, certain applications are there which allow the open IDs. Certain applications are there which allow only proprietary IDs. Particularly if you're making use of these cloud applications which are provided by certain cloud providers, you are supposed to create proprietary IDs so that your authenticity can be guaranteed. But open IDs are also there. They will also allow you to access cloud services or cloud applications, but not all. I mean, certain applications allow you open IDs. Certain applications will compulsory ask you to enter proprietary IDs. Okay, so some of the companies or some of the corporations which allow open IDs are IBM and Yahoo, whereas Google App Engine or all Google apps that are there, or Microsoft cloud-based applications, they have their own proprietary software and so proprietary user ID and password account you have to create. That only you have to use. Okay. Then the second service is integration. Now, what do we mean by the word integration? When we are running applications in a cloud environment, there can be multiple applications which are working. So at a stretch, at a time, you simultaneously, it may be required that you run more than one application, and you may want one application to interact with another. Whenever one application has to interact with another, only when you integrate them, one application will be able to interact with another. So to integrate or to allow two or more cloud-based applications to interact, generally a technique is used which is called as a message queue. Now, with the help of message queue, two applications can exchange information or they can exchange messages. One such example is Amazon's cloud applications that are there, or cloud services that are there. It provides SQS, that is simple queue services. So message queues are created and exchange of messages happens between two or more applications, allowing those applications to interact with each other. Okay. Now, again, this might seem like what big deal, because we have used this and all the time we are using it now, because this is 20 years down the line. But when this book was written at that time, identifying the user, integrating the applications was really a big deal. Okay. Then there are other services. Again, you might find this very funny. What big deal? One such service is mapping. Most of the cloud applications nowadays integrate Google Maps or maybe other like Microsoft Virtual Earth, other applications like which are using GPS. We are able to find the direction, or we are able to reach the destination. Such mapping services in those days, say about 15-20 years back, they were just being introduced. Nowadays, you know, even if you decide to buy something on a Geo app from Reliance, GeoMart, you want to buy something, there's a location icon that you find. The moment you turn it on, your location is identified and it takes the address directly. So this is no big deal now. But 20 years back, mapping was what you can say, out of the world application, wherein Google Maps or maybe other applications which identify the location of the user, integrating them and providing that as a service was something very new at that time. So today it might not be new, but one such service is using the standard Google Maps or other such services as a part of your cloud application. The next service that is there in cloud-based applications is payments. Again, this is not new to us, but this was quite new at that time. Online payments, 15 years back, people couldn't even think of online payments. Today, you don't even carry cash. Most of your transactions are done online. So, during those days, when cloud computing was just being introduced, integrating payment app as a part of your cloud application was one of the service that was provided, wherein the user was allowed to make payments online or sign up for services like PayPal or some other gateways, payment gateways, with the help of which online payments could be done. Again, one more important service that was provided 10-15 years back was live search or search. Your cloud applications have got a search option. Now, again, this is not new to us. In everything, we have a search option now. There's always that search bar that is there, or the, what you call the lens that is there. It's there on your mobile phone also. So anything you want, you can search. In those days, when cloud applications were being introduced, embedding search options in your cloud application was done for the first time. So example of such services, MS Microsoft Live Search. Hardly that name also matters nowadays, again, because this book is very, very old and we are learning something which is very old. Still, you can look at it as something that was introduced, say, 15 years back. So what are some of the services that were provided as a part of cloud applications? Establishing the identity of the user with the help of proprietary user ID and password or OpenID. Then integrating, that is more than one applications can interact with each other with the help of message queues. Mapping, maps were integrated into the cloud applications. Payment gateways were integrated into the cloud applications, and search option was provided in most of the cloud applications. Okay. Now, what we need to learn next is about cloud platforms. Okay. So what are cloud platforms? Cloud platform refers to how cloud computing services are delivered to the customers. How are the cloud applications and the services made available to the customers? Customers is the clients or the cloud consumers. Say, for example, you decide to subscribe for a cloud service, then you become the cloud consumer. So how is that application made available to you? Which are the different technologies that are used to make those services available to you? One such technology is web application framework. So there are different ways. We are going to learn one by one. One such method of making cloud computing services available to the customer is with the help of a web application framework. What is a web framework? Everybody knows, no? Framework integrates a lot of utilities together. So what's a web application framework? You people have learned .NET framework, isn't it? There are code libraries, there are existing subroutines, there are some existing, predefined user your GUI elements. Those you can integrate and develop your application. That is called as a framework. Like that, there are web application frameworks or web-based frameworks which help or which support in the implementation, development and implementation of dynamic websites and web services to the end users. So what does it contain? It contains a number of predefined libraries. Already those subroutines are there. You don't have to code everything. For RAD, rapid application development. So you people must have seen in C#, you have learned .NET using C#. In C#, so many predefined libraries are there. Even in Java, for that matter, so many built-in classes are there. You simply have to inherit those methods and your task is done. So these frameworks integrate a lot of utilities, lot of tools which are useful in rapid application development. These frameworks can be used for cloud application development also. So one method of providing cloud computing services to the user is to make use of web application framework. The next common technology that is employed for delivering the cloud applications to the user is Ajax. Now, you people must have heard, we are not going to learn whole of Ajax, but you should know that Ajax can be used to deliver cloud services to the user. You people must be knowing what is Ajax. Asynchronous JavaScript and XML. Okay, it is commonly used for creating interactive web pages. For web design, commonly you employ Ajax. And one of the important features of Ajax is that you can retrieve data synchronously from the background. Means in the foreground, one application can be working and you don't make any change in the display. You don't make any changes in the foreground. Directly in the background, what can happen is the data can be retrieved and it can be processed with the help of Ajax. So synchronously, in the sense, in the foreground, your application that is working can be different. Still in the background, you can retrieve the data that is necessary. This is possible with Ajax. Okay, so it does not interfere with the display and behavior of the current page. Currently, you might be in the foreground, you might be working with something else. Still in the background, you can perform some tasks. Ajax includes a lot of technologies like HTML, CSS, DOM, Document Object Model, XML, XSLT. You people have learned some of these technologies and you will learn some of these technologies over a period of time. But one such technology which can be employed to deliver cloud applications to the user is Ajax. Another technology, another method Another framework that can be employed to develop cloud applications is Python Django. Okay. Now Django is an open source web application framework. Again, it's a framework. It has got a lot of tools, lot of utilities, code libraries. It can be commonly used for database driven website. Django, if you people know, particularly if you have, database related transactions, database related web application you want to develop, you can do it using Django. Okay. So it contains a lot of reusable components, and it makes use of different principles that can be employed while you're developing your application, like that of CRUD, that is create, read, update, and delete. These are the common database applications. You create a table, you retrieve, fetch the data from the table, you modify the data, and you also delete the data. So lot of inbuilt libraries are there for developing database related applications. Caching can be done very easily with the help of Django. There is an internal dispatcher. Many features are there. Internal dispatcher generally allows you to schedule the threads one after another, how your threads have to be executed to do the task. That scheduling of the threads is done with the help of an internal dispatcher. Thread means, you understand, no? In Java, you people have learned a task could be implemented with the help of threads. So if you have multiple threads, which one should be executed first or which could be executed simultaneously, that is decided by the internal dispatcher. So Django is one that you can use for developing cloud applications. Then web hosting services, like ready-made cloud applications are there, and cloud providers will provide them. Okay, generally they allow you to store your data and allow you to make use of their applications. Some of the examples of cloud providers like cloud web hosting services are given on the screen. One is Amazon's Elastic Computing Cloud, EC2, then Mozo, then Azure is there, Force.com is there, and they provide different types of services. Like for example, Elastic Compute Cloud provides computing capacity. If you want to hire, or if you want to lease CPU cycles, you want more computing speed for your applications, you can subscribe to Amazon's EC2. Then Mozo is another one which allows small enterprises, to host their services and store their data. Windows Azure is another web hosting service, and it provides all three types of services, that is SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS. Similarly, we have Force.com, which is another cloud provider which provides PaaS services. So there are so many more. Now, these were some of the earliest players who were in the market who were providing cloud services, but there are many more who do the same. Okay. Then there are general web application, cloud-based web applications like Google Apps or Google Apps Premier Edition. Now, all of us are using this. Gmail, Google Calendar, Google Talk, all these are nothing but web applications, cloud-based, and they allow users to store their data, make use of the applications for their day-to-day needs. Now, Premier Edition was again something which was available 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Today, most of the providers give you all these, basic applications or basic services. So a Premier Edition generally used to be for people who want to store data beyond 10 GB or who wanted support for their critical applications at less cost. So for them, that Premier Edition was there. Today, this is all obsolete or really outdated, because there are so many web-based applications free of cost, providing you very high storage of data. So still beyond that, if you want to make use of the web applications for higher storage of data, then you can always subscribe to some really good cloud service providers so that security of your data is maintained. Okay. So I have told you quite a few things. I don't know. All right. We'll also take this up and then we will stop. Another way of providing, making cloud applications or cloud services available to the customers or cloud consumers is to make use of web APIs. Now, you people must have come across this word called API in a lot of technologies that you have learned. Right now, you are learning, you've already learned advanced Java, you are learning web programming, you learned C#. So you people must have come across what is meant by API, application programming interface. Okay. Now, what is a web API? It's a set of instructions, programming instructions that can access and interface with the web program. So you might have a small code, you might have a small subroutine, which is capable of interacting with some other web program to maybe fetch the data, to get the data that is required for a process to run. Okay. So interaction between two or more applications most of the time nowadays happens with the help of APIs, application programming interface. Okay. So it is not a user interface. You don't have to interact. The programs will directly interact. The applications will directly interact. You can say it is similar to SaaS, but it is not SaaS. Why it is similar to SaaS? Because in SaaS also ready-made application is made available. Here also ready-made piece of code is made available. One very simple example is, suppose you are buying something online. Okay. If you are trying to place your order with Reliance for day-to-day groceries or something, first what you do, you start, and then the application opens, it shows you a list of items available, then you go on checking, it adds to your cart. After it adds to your cart, you want to actually place the order. The moment you place the order, you people must have seen it takes you to a payment gateway. What is a payment gateway? It could be something like you want to pay through PhonePe, or you want to pay through a Google app, GPay, or some other payment app. Okay. Now that payment app is a different application, and this Jio app through which you are choosing your grocery items and all that is a different application. So what is done is that the payment app is embedded here, and the API interacts with the background server or the payment server, so that which in turn interacts with your bank account. It checks whether the available balance is there, and then that much amount is deducted from your account, and the payment is done. So all of us have used this. Now what happens is your Jio app that is there, and the Big Bazaar app that is there, and the payment gateway, they are different. So what is done now? Through your app, a API is there, which is going to interact with the payment gateway, maybe Google Pay, or maybe PhonePe, or maybe to your bank account. It could be anything. So this API will interact with the background server, and then exchange of information happens. Once the amount is credited to the Jio's account, or to which you are trying to make an online transaction, once that amount is credited, then the transaction is complete. Now here, through our API, we are interacting with the payment gateway, and that's why it allows two or more applications to interact with each other. Okay, you all can see how the API works. Generally, you may have an application which is working on your mobile phone. A request, for example, you have placed an order of 1,000 rupees. So a request is made through an API to a payment gateway. So through the API, the request is made to the server. Server is working in the backend. The payment gateway will in turn start executing. It will deduct that much amount from your bank account, and then the response is provided back on your mobile phone. So what comes into picture for two applications to interact is a API. Now you people must have heard different companies, they generate and they advertise, or they can put up their own APIs. For example, Google comes up with a lot of APIs. Twitter comes up with a lot of APIs. Twitter APIs are there. You can directly, with the help of the Twitter APIs, you can directly interact with the Twitter application and get lot of data that is available on Twitter. For example, just if you make use of a Twitter API for keyword search, you can download thousands of tweets that are there on your machine for a particular day or related to a particular keyword. Now you don't have to do anything. You are working on your application. You just have to make use of the Twitter API, which allows you to download it. All the data will get downloaded. It will get saved in the kind of format that you want. It can be saved as a CSV file. It can be saved as a Excel file. It can be saved in different forms. So what are you doing there? You're just making use of the API, giving the necessary input. It interacts with the Twitter server database and downloads all the data necessary that you want based on a particular keyword. So there are many ways of providing services to the end user, and some of them we have learned today. Like we learned, cloud platforms could be delivered to the customer through a web application framework. We can make use of Ajax, Django. Web hosting services are there. Different web applications are there, and different APIs can also be used in order to allow 2 or more applications to interact with each other. Okay. I hope I have been clear in what I have tried to tell you. If you have any doubts, you can ask me. Before that, all of you enter your attendance in the chat box. And if you have any doubts, just let me know.
No, ma'am.
Okay, all of you have entered the attendance. Okay, should we stop?
Yes, ma'am, we can stop.
Yes, ma'am.